said, hey, what's up? Hello. This is puzzle number 7. The Savant Strikes Back, a reference to I think it's a reference to puzzle number 1, where you starred as the Savant. So we are the Savant again in this puzzle. Back then, that one was relatively easy. This one is a bit more of a challenge, and honestly, I found it really fun trying to solve it when I did. Just as a reminder, these puzzles are all made by Not Quite Vertical. That will be linked in the description. And if you enjoy these puzzles, I encourage you to leave a like and comment, subscribe, because it really does help out. Now, before I continue, if you want to pause to try to solve this puzzle yourself, go ahead. Now is the time. Otherwise, I'm going to get right into the rules. So the rules here are there's one demon, a Leviathan, so not going to be misinformation, and one minion, a goblin, so neutral evils that will not cause misinformation. Evil players lie, of course, and may lie with their information. That is important to note, that they may lie. There is one outsider in play, and it's the mutant. So it's not a drunk, but a mutant. And, oops, it is important to note that the mutant will fully comply with madness, claiming a townsfolk role, and providing arbitrary info. Essentially, it's a drunk in this game. For the sake of this puzzle, it's basically a drunk. And we know we are not evil or the mutant. And the reason I think it's a mutant over a drunk is because during the first puzzle, there is a drunk, and the rules say, by the way, you are not the drunk, but there's no mechanical information to prove that we are not the drunk. So it's okay, sure. So who is the demon and who is the minion? That is important to note. So we know that we are a good townsfolk. We know our information is 100% sober. Boom. And that's kind of all we know right now. And as you can see, we have 3 days worth of information. What I want to do is just completely ignore all the other information here. It's kind of hard to go along. Okay, well, let's go ahead and look at everyone's roles. So Anna's the juggler. Not really a good way to start solving the world. Ify is the Shugenja. I can never pronounce this name. And I recently saw someone tell me how to pronounce it, and I just forgot. Shugenja. Again, not really much we can go off of. Steph is the dreamer. Again, it's kind of difficult to go off of anything with this. Tim, village idiot. That'll be difficult. Us, the savant. Fraser, the village idiot. Sarah, the fortune teller, could be good to start with. And Oscar, the investigator. Generally, if you've seen some of the other puzzles, I like to actually start with the investigator because it narrows down worlds really quickly. The issue here is, even though this could instantly bring down the goblin to one of 3 people, Fraser, Steph, or Oscar, Oscar can actually still be the mutant. So that would make this arbitrary, and then we just don't have a nail case shut of where the goblin is. So I'm going to choose to ignore that for now. And what I did last time during puzzle 1 is I went through every single piece of a savant information one by one until it worked out. And looking at these multiple days of information, there's actually one specific day here that when I first saw this puzzle, I was like, I actually want to start here rather than with the first one. I actually want to start with day 2 of information because Sarah is her own red herring. Fraser is the drunk village idiot. Both of these, whichever one is true, clears up a lot of information. For example, if Sarah is her own red herring, that means we have a bunch of sober info, as well as Sarah confirmed fortune teller, and As you can see, Oscar Iofi, no. Fraser Tim, no. That leaves a demon to 2 people. Yeah, 2 people, Anna or Steph, which is why it's such a strong start if it's the true one. Alternatively, if Fraser is the drunk village idiot, then that means Tim's information is definitely good. Fraser is a drunk village idiot. And we can kind of go based off of, okay, Anna and Sarah are good. Sarah could be the mutant. I could be the red herring to Sarah. Anna's definitely good, etc., right? So that's kind of where I'm going with this one. So that's where I'm going to start with this puzzle, with this video. Is Sarah's her own red herring versus Fraser's the drunk village idiot. I think it's a lot faster to clear up Fraser's the drunk village idiot. So we're going to go ahead and do that. If Fraser is the drunk, and we'll note that here, that means Tim has to be a definite village idiot, meaning Anna and Sarah are both good. And specifically, Anna has to be the mutant because this is bad information. Tim is definitely a village idiot in this world. And I'm a savant, but there's only one guess correct, right? So we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this as a reference of what world we're in right now. Okay, cool. So we kind of got all this. My nearest evil player is anti-clockwise, which is going in this direction, right? So you're saying Anna. Well, it can't be Anna, so it has to be Oscar. Oscar has to be evil. Which type of evil? We don't know right now. Or Iofi is evil, right? It could be... The issue here is Iofi actually has to be evil, because if it is pointing at Oscar, that's bad information, because the other evil would have to be Steph in Iofi's world, Efi's world. It just doesn't make sense. Right. Let's say it was Oscar, and the Shugenja was sober and a good player. Steph has to be the Leviathan, and then this makes the info wrong. That's why Shugenja has to be evil. And then Oscar's saying Fraser or Steph is the goblin. So one of Oscar or Steph is evil. That kind of confirms it. Steph's information is saying Sarah's fortune teller. Yep. I'm the savant. Yep. Fraser's a mutant or goblin. Well, that's wrong. So Steph has to be the goblin. Oscar is good. And that makes our Leviathan Iofi, right? So information all checks out, except for Sarah's fortune teller information. So, because Iofi can't be the Leviathan according to that. So it has to be Steph. And then Iofi Goblin, but then why is Oscar's information wrong? You know? It's not adding up. And that is why, even without going into the rest of the Savant information, that's why this world is just incorrect. And we can immediately cross that out, meaning we know one thing for sure. Sarah is her own red herring, and Fraser is not a drunk village idiot. Now, what that means? Well, that just means, one, Sarah is good, and that means a couple things. Fraser is not the Leviathan. Tim is not the Leviathan. Oscar is not the Leviathan. And the Shugenja is not the Leviathan. So now, oh my gosh. So now we brought this world to 2 possible Leviathans, as soon as I can do the X thing, correct? So we brought this world to Anna or Steph. So kind of where do we go from here, right? Oscar still can be a mutant, so we can't really go based off this information. We know Sarah is her own red herring. Oh, yeah, and we can just mark the X's here as well. Okay. Now, kind of, we can follow along with one of these two being the Leviathan, but let's go with our information. So now, let's go back to day 1. Of Fraser, Anna, and Steph, Fraser, Anna, and Steph, one is evil, so noble information, or the Leviathan sits 3 spaces from the Goblin, Clockmaker information. So kind of, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. There's a lot going on here. And it's kind of difficult to piece together which of these two is the correct one. Let's go ahead and assume that our first piece of information is correct and that this is wrong, right? Just for the sake of following some logic. Of Fraser, Anna, and Steph, one is evil. Fraser, Anna, and Steph. And what we do know is that the Leviathan is not 3 spaces away from the Goblin. So they cannot be evil together. And we know Fraser's not the Leviathan. So Fraser can only be the Goblin, and then these two would be good. But the issue is, we know Sarah is her own red herring. So one of these two is guaranteed Leviathan, and they're both in this ping, this evil ping. So Fraser just has to be good if we're following this logic, right? So we don't know if he's the mutant, but he's not the Goblin, and he's not the Leviathan. So it's between these two. And who the Goblin is, well, we don't know. Let's see. This is kind of all we get out of this information, because we don't even know if we can... Because Fraser could be a mutant, could be a drunk village idiot, or could just be a sober village idiot. In which case, darn, right? Aofi, again, could be the mutant, could be the Goblin. Like, it's hard to follow anyone's information here, other than my own and Sarah's. Now, let's just go ahead and assume of Juggler, Shugenja, and Village Idiot, one role is not in play. And then this is wrong. Kind of assuming, right? We're testing worlds out. So of Juggler, Shugenja, and Village Idiot, which we have double, one is not in play. That kind of implies either there's a mutant and Goblin between these two, or, and obviously Fraser would have to be the mutant, Tim would be the Goblin, I guess, or Anna's the Leviathan, or the Shugenja's not the Shugenja, right? Because this could still just be like a mutant in one of these roles. And of Oscar, Anna, and Tim, 2 are townsfolk. Oscar, Anna, and Tim, 2 of them are not townsfolk, is what that means. So think about that. 2 of these are not townsfolk. That means there's either a Leviathan, a Goblin, or a mutant. 2 of those 3 are in this ping of 3, if we're following this logic. So let's go ahead and just assume, okay, well, if Tim is getting Anna's good, Anna is the mutant, right? Let's assume Tim is the one townsfolk. Anna is the mutant. Tim is the townsfolk. And Oscar is a Goblin. Sure. Again, that doesn't work with the Shugenja information because Shugenja cannot be Leviathan, and it's pointing in the wrong direction. So, doesn't work. This could also be 3 are townsfolk, so let's assume they're all real, right? Fraser or Steph is the goblin. Well, that means Steph is the Leviathan, and Anna is the juggler, but that doesn't check out, so automatically, that just doesn't work. What if Oscar's the mutant? And we have a goblin between these two? Well, let's say Anna's the goblin, right? Because we have a Yofi's information. How does that work with everyone else? That means Steph has to be the Leviathan. Okay. Meaning this townsfolk information would be arbitrary. Tim is a real village idiot. And that means Fraser's a real village idiot. Tim would be the drunk. Right? Because they're getting Anna good. Does this not check out? Oh, Fraser, Anna, and Steph. One is evil. Fraser, Anna, and where's Steph? Well, that's 2 evils. So this doesn't work. And if you switch the 2, say this is wrong, and this is right, it still doesn't work because they're not 3 spaces apart. So this world doesn't actually work either, unfortunately. So let's go back to Anna. There's a lot of flack on Anna here, especially with this last piece of information. Anna's here, juggler, which is Anna's claim. Anna up here. Let's assume Anna is the evil. We'll assume Leviathan. That's much easier, right? And kind of go from there. Okay, Tim is either a drunk village idiot or a mutant, right? Steph is seeing Fraser as a mutant or goblin. There's just, as you can see, there's so much information here, and it's hard to figure out what is what. We know for a fact Fraser is not a drunk village idiot and is not a... That's all we know. Fraser's not a drunk village idiot. Either a real village idiot or a mutant. Because we know in this world, Fraser can't be evil. But if we switched it over to the Leviathan, then yeah, Fraser's much more likely because he's 3 steps away from both demon candidates. And it's just so much chaos, so much of who's right, who's wrong. Let's keep going along this logic of Anna being the Leviathan. So 1 evil, Fraser, Steph, and Anna. So that means Fraser's good. Steph is good. One of them. And then Tim would have to be evil, drunk, or mutant. And for now, yeah. For now, we'll just go along that logic. And we'll go ahead and do this as well, just to make things more clearly. Because right now, we're jumping around worlds. So let's follow this world right now. Where does that leave us? Well, we know the goblin cannot be Fraser and cannot be Tim. So these 2 are guaranteed good. Are they both townsfolk? We don't know. One of them could still be the mutant. Going back down, of Juggler, Shugenja, and Village Idiot, 1 role is not in play. We know Village Idiot is in play, guaranteed. Because there's 2 of them. And neither of them can be Goblin or... And they can't both be mutant, right? In the world Anna is the Leviathan, I mean. So, and in this world in general, Juggler is the fake. So... That leaves us of Oscar, Anna, and Tim. 2 are townsfolk. That is not true. Well, we know Anna's not a townsfolk. So one of Oscar and Tim is lying, and it leads me to believe Tim is the mutant. So we'll do that. Tim is the mutant. Fraser is a real village idiot who got good information. Oscar can still technically be the goblin or a townsfolk who's seeing Fraser or Steph as the goblin. But we know Fraser can't be the goblin, and we know Steph can't be the goblin. So Oscar has to be the goblin in this world. Right? And then Aofi just has to be good, and Steph is good. Does the information line up? Ignore Anna's. Shugenja anti-clockwise. Yeah, that works. Steph, fortune teller or Leviathan. On Sarah, correct. Savant or goblin, correct. Mutant or goblin. That is wrong. Huh. Okay. Well, that doesn't work. What if we did this, though? And this is going to be, as you'll soon see, very accurate. So we know Tim's information is wrong, but what if he is the drunk? And what if our mutant is Steph? Does that work? Okay, so we follow back along. Shugenja is good. Steph's dreamer information now doesn't matter. Tim's information is drunk. We'll come back to the Savant. Sarah, Shugenja, and me, good. That works. Fortune teller information works. This is a goblin. Okay, so everyone else's information adds up to this world. Let's see our world. Of Fraser, Anna, and Steph, one is evil. Fraser, Anna, and Steph, one is evil. And that's Anna. That checks out. The Leviathan sits 3 spaces from the goblin. That has to be fake. That is fake because they sit next to each other. Sarah is her own red herring, as we already know. That's correct. Is Fraser the drunk village idiot? Not in this world. Of jungler, Shugenja, and village idiot, one role is not in play. That would be the juggler, because we do have a Shugenja and we do have a village idiot. 2 of them, in fact. And now of Oscar, Anna, and Tim, 2 are townsfolk. That is not true. We have Tim, who is a townsfolk, Anna and Oscar are not townsfolk. So everything adds up. And yes, this is the correct world. This one took me a while to get correct, but I got through it. If this particular video was a little confusing while going through kind of the possibilities, just know it was a lot more confusing for me when I was first doing it, okay? And I think that makes for a good puzzle. And I've done some of the future puzzles. They're all pretty good, but this is so far one of my favorite ones. So yeah, I hope that puzzle, you got what you wanted out of that, this puzzle in your brain, in your noggin. And if you want to see another one, just click the video or click on this video on your screen to go to my previous puzzle number 6.